Hey, welcome back to Effluvium. This episode, we have special guest Chester Gibbs. And for those of you who don't know Chester Gibbs, I'm going to introduce him to you. So, some fun facts. Chester was born in Zaanstad in the Netherlands. He grew up in an area that is known for their cacao processing factories. So, the smell of cacao is one that he associates with growing up in that part of the country, with his mom being Indonesian and his father German, and the smells of the spices in Indonesian food. These were other factors that had influenced his scent context a lot. And he started to take an interest in perfumes when he was a teenager and used to steal his sister's Vanderbilt. I love that. In 1992, he started a job for KLM Royal Dutch Airlines at the airport, dealing with flight disruptions and angry passengers. But since then, he had always wanted to go into the art academy, which he did. And he got accepted to academy in 1998, studied drawing and painting in Amsterdam. And that was at the, if I pronounce this correctly, the Gerrit Rietveld Academy. So he is a prolific drawer. I have seen his work, and I've been really compelled by his work as well. At one point, a number of years ago, he got more interested in niche perfumes and started his own small collection. And that was the plan at that time. But when the collection got too big to possibly wear all of them, which I'm quite familiar with, and then some, he decided to use them before and during drawing. And with that, he literally would smell perfumes to set a mood for the drawings, and was convinced that these perfumes determined the outcome, which is fascinating. He perceived some of the perfumes in colors and textures, and also had noted how the scent can move someone and influence their mood and emotions. So that also comes into play with his smelling and drawing. And in 2016, he started learning the ropes of creating scent. He decided that smelling wasn't enough, and that possibly creating could be more interesting and perhaps a new way of expressing himself. So then he had gone to GIP ASFO summer school in Glass, France, for 2 summers to study the basics. And he set up a little room at home where he worked on small creations, and then decided that he needed a teacher. So he contacted Daniel Pescio, ISI PCA trained, and attended his group classes online and one-on-one. And he was able to learn all of these new things, drawing, and when he was drawing or painting, using those tools with which he was familiar, pencils, etc. He also, realized his ability to create and have developed, a style that would translate into his scent creation process. Some inspirations. With his mixed upbringing, he loves food and cooking and the food of his mother's country. He often cooks as often as he can, and notes the smells that are involved with that, with a hint of jasmine. That could be, in a particular perfume. He loves the thought of savory perfumes, which I also am drawn to as well. So we could chat about that a little bit. And the first perfume he started working on after that GIP summer school was a perfume based on a salad with coconut, garlic, and lots of lime. So in 2020, he left his job at the airport and decided to work part-time at the Perfume Lounge, a perfume shop in Amsterdam, a Haute Perfumery, where he would love to, visit to buy new perfumes. And then getting to the old art and olfaction side, his current goal is to unite scent and visual art. So interdisciplinary, the intersection between scent and visual art, and loves to give small workshops on that. Some of his favorite perfumes: Parfum d'Empire, a Musk Tonkin, Robert Piguet Facade, Caron pour un homme, Diorissimo, Frederic Mal Carnal Flower, and Antaeus. Antaeus, not Antaeus. Perish the thought. Chanel Antaeus. We currently have 6 people tuned in. I'm going to be bringing in Chester in just a moment. And the focus, or 2 focuses of this particular stream, we're going to be sharing our observations on materials, synthetic, natural, that go into the building of white floral notes and white floral chords. Later in the stream, we're also going to be discussing process in examining and observing, if you will, scent. The comparison between this intuitive process, where we just go by feeling, the visceral, versus the more analytical process, which some of us can have a tendency to get into if we do have that perfume making background of deconstructing and analyzing and looking at the components in a more scientific sense. So we're going to be chatting a little bit about that as well. We have a few comments that have come in. And okay, so we have Philippe. Scent of the Day, Musk by Lorenzo Villaresi. Very nice. And we have Miguel. Scent of the Day, Paco Rabanne Poron. Excellent. We have 7 people tuned in. Without further ado, I'm going to bring in our special guest, Chester Gibbs, and we'll get the conversation started.
Hi.
Hello. Hi.
Hello.
Great to have you joining me.
Yes, thank you so much for having me.
Of course, of course. I think we should just get right to it, and we should talk about white florals and fragrance. Now, I want to ask you first, what is the material that comes to mind beyond anything else? Like, what is the one that you want to grab and talk about?
I would say tuberose. That's the one flower that like pops up immediately. Second would be jasmine, like kind of like these two. So yeah, that's a flower that immediately got me. And you already mentioned me like stealing perfumes from my sister's room.
Yeah.
So I used to steal her Gloria Vanderbilt and her Lulu and her Poison by Dior. And
Nice.
It was kind of a sneaky thing. I always thought like, yeah, I'm supposed to wear these masculine men's things. And when I was young, I think the separation between like marketing wise was bigger than it is today. I mean, now most people, they, especially with niche perfumes, it's like generally accepted that you just pick whatever you feel comfortable with. But at that day, and I was growing up as a teenager, so I was very sensitive to adverse and what other people thought of me. But I knew that I had this desire for white florals. I didn't realize that all these perfumes that I craved had like a common thing, which was this beautiful narcotic sensual white flower. So and I noticed that while stealing perfumes that most of them had either jasmine or tuberose in them. So that's the one flower that comes to mind when I think of white flowers in perfumes.
Lovely. Maybe what we should do is concentrate on tuberose first.
Sure.
Thankfully, there's an organization in here where I'm fairly certain the tuberose materials are located in the same vicinity. Very quickly, though, Money Burner, thank you for stopping by. Did I lose weight? I'll let you decide. Maybe I'm just feeling just have a little bit of a glow to myself that, maybe a few pounds. Thank you very much, though. And it is, in fact, live. You are watching a live stream. Miguel says, obviously, since I was able to reply to your comments. I love tuberose, says Miguel. I proudly wear Poison by Dior. Well, that's a great example. I'm already thinking of a few. Well, you love Fracasse, which is the which is the hallmark tuberose fragrance. So I'm gonna pick up this. I have here. I can actually put it on my lap, and the one that I'm thinking of immediately, it just comes to mind. Are you familiar with methyl tuberate?
Yeah, I don't own it. I've smelled it in class, but I don't own it.
So I am figuring out, it's been a while. I'm looking at, because I went on hiatus with my perfume making. So I'm revisiting all the materials. I have my Muguet, my Narcissus. Okay, Magnolia, Lilac, Tuberose. I'm looking here. And that was the one that immediately came to mind. But I want to ask you, as far as a tuberose, were you going to share a natural material or a synth that would be used to help build an accord?
Well, I have a few naturals. So I picked a tuberose absolute.
Why don't I do that then?
Yeah, and I have also a ylang extra because it's often used in tuberose bases, so like accords. And I have the synthetic. I have methyl salicylates.
Nice, yeah.
Indole, of course, I picked it, natural isolate, and I got what was the other one? I think methylatrenolate somewhere lying around here.
So for folks who are unfamiliar with methylantranolate, methylantranolate is used for white flowers such as jasmine and tuberose, but also a fun fact about methyl tuberose, orange blossom too, lest we forget. Methylantranolate is also what gives the conquered grape like either it's basically the grape flavor. So if you were to have a grape sweet or a grape candy, what gives it its aroma and flavor is methylantranolate, and that would explain how often when we have a very pronounced orange blossom or certain jasmine scents may give you that grape-like quality because of that methylantranolate. It's actually one of my favorite materials. But the tuberose absolute, I want to hear some of your thoughts on tuberose absolute, because I think some people will be surprised as to what that would smell like in isolation.
Okay, I'll smell some on the blotter. I mean, I can. When I first smelled it like this, was even before I had like met the real life flower. So I was quite shocked because I only knew like sort of the representations from the tuberose flower in perfumes,
right,
or tuberose accords. So when I first smelled the tuberose absolute, I was quite shocked at how thick it smelled, and green. It has even kind of like for me sort of like carnal leathery feel to it.
Right.
And like, whereas if you would normally get a waft of tuberose or jasmine, even you think of it as like sort of like although it's narcotic, it has something solar to it. But when you smell this, it's actually pretty dark. Even it's like I would say like a bit of mystery there, and very thick, but it's super seductive.
Right, and that's the thing that's fascinating about floral absolutes. What I learned about floral absolutes is they definitely are they are a distillation. It's sort of, obviously with the process of using heat in many of those cases, certain scented molecules are not left behind. So you have this very dense, like you say, dense and deep and rich sort of quality that is sort of like the nucleus of the flower. And what you have to do as a perfumer is you have to build around that nucleus with everything else to kind of reconstruct it. But that being said, the materials themselves are so evocative, and you can see where, over time when you examine them, you can tell where they're going to fall, where it would fall into place in the final product, and go figure. I'm looking through this aimlessly, and everything I'm picking out of here is every other flower but the tuberose. But I recall just how distinct it was. Like, it was recognizably tuberose, but just like a cross section, like you take just
but very that's also funny. If you before I had smelled the tuberose absolute, and even before I had actually met the real flower, you kind of have this idea of what tuberose smells like through the perfumes you smell. But then when you have the real flower and you have it around you the whole day, you smell, you notice there's changes in the scent that it like gives off during the day, and you can really tell, oh, this perfume, it's like in this phase of the flower, and the other perfume is more that phase. And with the tuberose absolute, I've only encountered 2 perfumes that are tuberose perfumes, but they actually smell like the Absolute. They have this facet of the Absolute, which I really love, because you don't really find that a lot in, let's say, the typical commercial tuberose perfumes. They tend
Right.
to be really pretty and beautiful, yes,
Yeah.
seductive, but like this quality of the almost like leathery, fleshy side that the Absolute has, you don't really find that often in perfumes.
And it's really forward in this particular perfume, the Absolute. That, you know what that reminds me of? So there's that very exclusive house, JAR Parfums,
Hmm.
and they're the I forgot the name of it, but the Carnation. I have a small sample of it. I finally received it from a friend recently, and that is all about the Carnation Absolute, which we know, if we're familiar with Carnation Absolute, does not really smell like the carnation flower, but still, it is such a peculiar and compelling kind of scent. So I think that's really cool when perfumers will take, a natural material and throw away any sort of ideas of how to build around it to make it natural, and then just really focus on that material itself. It can
Yeah.
create something very, very interesting indeed. And I'm frustrated because I wish I could.
You're still looking for it.
Oh my goodness, it's so bad. Like, I can't find my tuberose. I know it's it could be, I moved here last year and it was a bit rushed. And if it's not here, it could very well be in a different bin accidentally. But I have lots of other floral absolutes that I keep in my here. However, even if I don't have the tuberose absolute readily at hand here, I do have a few of the other materials that you mentioned that would be the synthetics that would be used to
Hmm.
build a particular accord. Now, you mentioned the salicylate, one of the salicylates. Did you mention,
Yes.
yes, benzyl? Is it benzyl? Well, benzyl salicylate is
Um, yeah, but the one I have right in front of me is methyl salicylates.
oh, yes, methyl salicylate. And for folks who often think about how there is a mentholated quality to tuberose, which there is in the flower, um, sometimes that's really pushed forward. Like, for
Yeah.
example, with Tubulus criminal, very mentholated. But then
Yeah, very
sometimes it's
much.
right. Christopher Sheldrake, I think, used a lot of methyl salicylate in that composition. But this is where you can impart that quality to the natural flower itself, the methyl salicylate. Chester, can you tell the audience? We have 13 on right now. What
Right.
exactly? Can you tell the audience what is a salicylate? What are salicylates?
Ooh, that's actually quite a question because I haven't really studied salicylates a lot. But if I smell the methyl salicylates, it's the scent of it. It's like you say, it's very sort of like mentally camphorous, wouldn't you
Yes,
say?
kind of wintergreen-ish. Like,
Yes,
I
wintergreen.
think, in fact, wintergreen, the main component of the flavor is methyl salicylate.
Yeah.
Salicylate, as if I'm not mistaken. Like, when you smell it, it smells, yeah, like wintergreen. So some people who were tuned in may be familiar with wintergreen candies or sweets. Here in North America, there's something called Canada mints. These
Hmm.
pink mints, and they're wintergreen flavored. When you smell methyl salicylate, it is the smell of Canada mints, of wintergreen. I am looking here. So you're much more obviously. I was like, I when I did this, I was like, oh sure, I'll be able to just pull these right out. And I'm not having luck right now. So feel free to carry on and chat a little bit more about your experience using methyl salicylate or
Well, when I remember when I was in Graz doing this summer course, the good thing about it was that the teachers they gave us the prices of each material. So of course, I immediately wanted to work with tuberose, and as you know, it's not really a very cheap flower. So I thought, like, how can I recreate this without actually using tuberose? And so this was one of the materials that we worked with there, together with Ylang Ylang, which we put in there. And I also put in my accord that I made. I wanted an animalic accord, so I put quite a high dose of indole, maybe too high for it to be acceptable, because it's really animalic, so not everybody likes this. So yeah, then the methyl salicylate, it's really nice. It gives it the tuberose very like fresh but camphorous push, and I think that's what makes the tuberose criminelle by Serge Lutin so different from the rest. It really stands out because, like, if you love tuberose and you have not smelled this perfume before, I think most of us already have sort of in mind what we want it to be, what we expect it to be, even though we don't intend this when we smell. But then it really hits you, the tuberose criminelle, and it really has this this kick with the methyl salicylate kind of notes. And I found another perfume by Pierre Guillaume, which I'm thinking it also must have it in there. Maybe you know it. It's Tuberose Couture. Has kind of...
Yeah, I'm familiar with it. I had a sample of it a long time ago. I do. Yeah, I remember detecting that methyl salicylate in that one as well, for sure.
A bit more bubblegummy though.
You're right. You're right. What do you think that that's attributed to when you get that bubblegumminess?
Well, it could be like a benzoate, maybe. I don't know if it's benzyl benzoate or methyl benzoate, but one of these has sort of like a bubblegummy banana. What do you have there? Do you have the
methyl benzoate here.
Oh, you have the methyl benzoate, so you can tell. But I'm guessing that has sort of like a banana bubblegummy vibe.
Yeah, it does to a degree, especially if you were to mix it with like different types of esters and butyrates. You definitely, totally, like really like the top notes of like a bubblegum flavor, like for sure. Yeah. And that, folks, is methyl benzoate. I'm sure some of our folks who are tuned in right now, this is all entirely new to them, so this is a fascinating exploration for them. Yeah, for sure. Methyl benzoate and methyl salicylate in heaps in tuberose criminelle. We have a couple folks who are in the chat right now. Bren, welcome. Good to have you here. Rachel, lovely to see you here. I'm glad that you could tune in at least, even if you couldn't join us.
Hi, Rachel.
Salicylates have an oily yet sandy texture and sort of act like musks. We're using suntan lotion in the past, especially 70s and 80s. Yes. Benzyl salicylate, for example, the smell of copper tone. The smell of copper tone, suntan lotion. It's a very distinct smell. Another favorite salicylate would be amyl salicylate, which is often used in fougères. Fougères giving that sort of, it kind of bridges some of the top notes into the base notes. It has that vaguely kind of green, ferny, clovery kind of smell. Yeah, there's some great salicylates used.
They have something fruity also very often.
Yeah. There's a few of them. I haven't memorized all of them. We have Antonio Hobson here. Hello, scent of the day, Les Abstraits Bellam. I just watched their video on vetiver. Very nice. And Rachel says proctoring a test, so she has the opportunity to listen in. So she's a teacher who is currently proctoring a test, giving her a little time to sneak in. Very nice. So we think about tuberose. What about gardenia? Because gardenia is sort of adjacent.
Yeah. It's funny that you mentioned gardenia, because one of my tuberose perfumes that I love most is the tuberose gardenia by Estée Lauder. I would say the gardenia, for me, if I smell it, it's a little bit more, I would say, gentle than the tuberose is. I mean, I smelled it actually in June. I was in Indonesia, in Bali, and there were lots of wild gardenia there, and I was just walking and I could smell it. And it's funny because it was instantly recognizable, but I knew it wasn't jasmine. I knew it wasn't tuberose, but it was like it could be both, but it's not. So for me, if I compare the two, I would say it's similar to both tuberose and jasmine, but it's less fleshy than a tuberose is for me. I don't know how you feel about that, Joseph.
Well, the thing about gardenias is there's a real lactonic quality, a
Yeah,
creamy lactonic
little
quality.
milky.
But then what makes gardenia so distinct is that you have the milky lactonic quality, and then you have this very vegetal green,
Yeah.
almost like rooty, radishy kind of aspect to it. And the contrast between the two of them, I think, is what makes it so uniquely narcotic, because your brain is sort of, I feel like your olfactory nerve is titillated by it because it doesn't know what to make out of it, but it wants more of it, at least for
Yeah.
me, because it's so unusual. It's so unique in that respect. So while you do have some of those elements that you would find with tuberose, the narcotic qualities, the indolic qualities, it's that combination of the creamy and lactonic with a very green, rooty vegetal that makes it just so compelling and so. I have methyl tuberate here, and while it does have tuberate in the name, this seems to be more frequently used in the construction of a gardenia, because it kind of it imparts those qualities. That and sterol acetate
Yes,
as
sterol
well.
acetate. Yeah, that has sort of like a green, bitter vibe. I think it's nice to put in gardenia. It's actually also a very nice ingredient if you make a grapefruit accord, to put a bit of the sterol acetate in there. But
Right.
such
versatility.
Yeah.
Sterol acetate was instrumental in its usage in a lot of chypres in the mid 20th century. That sterol acetate that would be combined with things like galbanum and great hyacinth too. Hyacinth, very useful for hyacinth. Yeah,
because if you smell it on its own, and you wouldn't know, you wouldn't really think of it as being in a gardenia accord.
Yeah.
Really,
right. I love that when there's a material and you just can't wrap your head around how it's going to be used until you learn about how it is to be used, and then it comes together, and it's like, that's right, because if it weren't present, that certain shade, that certain characteristic would be missing. It's so much fun to be able to discover what would be unlikely and have it seem to just work impeccably in an accord. And it is an example of that, because when you smell it, it's not like, I don't get that out of gardenia. But then once you put it together, it's like, oh, I see. Like this methyl tuberate. Yeah. So to me, methyl tuberate, it smells like crayons. It's
like crayons.
Crayons.
So kind of like waxy.
Very waxy. It's an oily, waxy, unctuous, but a little more so than sterol acetate. I can tell where this comes in. Like I can see a little bit more, which would tell me that this is probably, when you're putting together an accord, there would be more of this, more quantity of methyl tuberate than, say, the sterol acetate. But it does remind me of when you're a child. And I don't know if Crayola was a brand where you are, but it was it still is a very popular crayon brand here in North America. And when you'd open up the crayons, that smell of fresh crayons that you have not used yet. And it's this methyl tuberate. Go figure. But that waxiness, that oiliness, that quality, that's there. That's another component of the gardenia. And then, are you familiar with something called Sivertol or Sivertol? Sivertol is also interesting too.
Oh, what does that smell like? Do you have it
So
there?
I do. Well, I did. I think I saw the vial just a second ago. But this is. You remember how I was talking about how gardenias have that kind of radishy, rooty, kind of
Yeah.
racemic quality? Well, Civertal smells just like that, and that's where that comes into play. Hopefully, I saw it earlier.
I should write that down because that seems like a very interesting material.
Syvertal. Civertal. And I do hope I can locate it because I'd love to smell it right now. When I come out of hiatus from perfume making, because it may very well happen, my enthusiasm is being reignited. I'll be far more organized. So even if I don't find this in time, I don't want to waste everyone's time. Civertal is worth smelling if one wants to get that vegetal, rooty, radishy, turnipy kind of quality to gardenia. That's very distinct and very unique to it as a flower. But yeah, I'm not just going to keep on looking through all of this just to find it. Just keep like, is it this? Is it this? Is it this? But that's another great one as well. What are some others that we can think of while we're thinking? Ooh, hi! We got some folks. Alora, hi, and hi, Christy. We're talking about materials used in white florals, and right now we're concentrating on gardenia. I mentioned methyl tuberate, and also Civertal, and then before that we were talking about tuberose. Thank you so much for joining us. Back to you, Chester. I keep talking away here.
Well, I'm sure this one you must have near you. I think that's
Indole.
So. Indole.
I have Indole and Indolerome.
Oh, all right. Well, I have Indolerome, but I haven't. I think because that's powder, isn't it?
It is. It's a powder,
yeah,
so
we
I can't really.
But I have Indole. Oh, it is actually Indolerome. It's very small lettering. So we could smell that.
I have Indoline as well, a shift space. Indoline 50. But I'll have you, because I'm trying to locate my pure indole. We'll just have you do sort of a little examination, because I don't think I'll be able to join you. So bad.
Well, it's much softer than indole, but it has sort of this I would almost say like mothball.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
You
know what? When I first smelled indole in isolation, I thought to myself, this smells like my Nana's closet. It smells like
I don't know your Nana. So...
Well, my Nana, my mother, my father's mother, my grandmother on my father's side. I remember one of her closets had this distinct smell of mothballs.
All right.
And when I first smelled indole in isolation, I was instantly taken back to my Nana and Papa's house, being very nosy and opening up doors. And I remember opening up their closet, and I got that, ooh, there are mothballs in here. Yeah. For sure.
Yeah, it really has that mothball quality. Again, I do think that if you would let anyone smell this and you would tell them that you find this in jasmine, gardenia, tuberose, and I think it's also in ylang, but in a lot of white flowers that we love, that's again like sterile acetate, not a material you would think, oh, it's in a flower, but definitely if you make a composition where you don't have any natural white flowers and you just add some indole, it does give it like a white floral facet to it, which I think is amazing. With just like a small dosage, you can already achieve that. It's also got something poopy, I think.
Well, I was about to segue, because who can tell me why this is in a bag? And actually, it should be in several bags. Who can tell me what's in this? Who can guess what's in this? This is sequestered.
I can't see it. What is it?
Oh, it's a tiny vial of it, because a little goes a very long way. And
is it paracresol?
It's scatol.
Oh, it is scatol. That's nuclear.
Oh God, it is kind of, it's the most ferocious qualities of poopy. Yeah.
Yeah.
Whereas indole is like almost delightfully poopy.
Acceptable
Scatol
poop.
is the poopy that you imagine in hell. It's
Yeah.
like you are stuck in a sewer kind of poopy. But I don't even know where I don't even know how I thought I was going to begin to work with Scatol, but I still have it here. It is used in traces, and for those who are tuned in, traces does not mean 1%. Because if you were to put 1% Scatol into a fragrance, it would just smell like poopy at 1%.
Yeah.
We would say 0.0001% dilution, or maybe Laura, who's tuned in, would probably could tell us exactly how diluted it should be. We're just gonna yes, Felix Scatol. Yes, sorry that I am catching up here. Oh, that's another one that's dreadful. Oh my goodness, Reeves Mercaptan. So Reeves Mercaptan. So we don't want to go off a tangent because we're talking about white flowers, but Reeves Mercaptan. That is in the same family of scented materials as the mercaptan that's used in natural gas, so that you know that it's leaking. So that gives you an idea. So that Reeves Mercaptan is used for a blackcurrant note, and oh god, I remember I almost vomited when I first smelled it. In like, it was this is early on when I was smelling things in not diluted. I was making the mistake of smelling things that I should never have smelled diluted, and that was one of them. And it was horrific. But back to something that's actually a little bit. Actually, if we were looking at like Scatol, isn't even as horrific as Reeves Mercaptan. Like I could tolerate Scatol before. But we'll go back to Indolo because I have Indoline 50. So if you look at this, maybe I'll zoom in. You can tell that it's a Schiff's base. It's viscous. It has that orange, pinkish quality to it. So we do have that effect that takes place using methyl anthranilate. Why don't I? I'm going to get a scent strip, and I'm going to smell this one. And it's not diluted, so don't try this at home. I don't want to be that influence, but I have a little bit of this goopiness at the very tip of this scent strip. And to me, when I smell Indoline 50, and let me bring you back into the view here, it starts to make more sense as a Schiff's base because you have that combination.
I've never smelled that one before, so
yeah.
What could you compare it to?
So Indoline to me would seem to be a little bit more useful, and correct me if I'm wrong, because I don't, I'm a little rough around the edges here, but I think it would be a little bit more useful for orange blossom. Which brings us to the debate. Do we think that orange blossom is a white floral? Could we consider it a white floral, or is it something else?
Yeah, for me it is, but
yeah, I would agree.
Yeah.
Yeah. So this would be kind of a good way of constructing maybe the headspace. But do you have Orange Blossom Absolute?
I don't. No.
Oh, you don't?
I don't.
It's okay. It's all right. It's expensive.
Yeah. Okay, I have a big bottle of Orantiol though. So that's
Orantiol. There you go.
Orantiol,
Speaking of Schiff's bases. Okay, so Rachel has a comment here. I'm happy to see very active chat here. Gardenia, methylanthranoate, indole, javanol, ethyl vanillin, fluorhydryl, methylbenzoate, eugenol, methylatone, Padma. Oh, Padma, that's a very cool one. Heliotrope, an interesting. Benzyl acetate, citronelyl acetate. Got to have those acetates in the floral. Poopy alert! Yikes! Alora says we keep the indole away from everything in multiple containers. It also will change colors. It oxidizes. It does cause a red color in your formula after it gets older. That's true. And that's why, like with some vintages, like vintage florals, you know, especially if you have a vintage floral that has indoles and vanilla in it, they get really dark and really like garnet ruby colored. Yeah, for sure. And Laura says that she has at creating perfume Scatol at less than 1%, which I think actually my dilution is like, I don't have pure. That's not even pure Scatol, and it reeks. Like I have a 1%. Yeah,
That's already so powerful.
right, right. So talk to us a little bit about Arantiol.
Well, I love the again, this one for me has we talked a bit about this sort of like bubblegummy thing, and this is like for me a floral bubblegum, orange blossom note. I must say that the danger in it is that I love this so much that I tend, if I create something, I tend to think, oh, let's just like put lots of Arentiol in it. And I like it a lot if I make something which I want to give like an orange blossom feel. But I've been mixing it with Toulouse balm as well, and with incense, and I think that is a really nice combination to have that orange blossom together with like the spiciness of the incense and the warmth of the Toulouse. Um, yeah, it's a really beautiful material. And if I compare it to methyl salicylate, that's a lot sharper, and that has that camphorous feel to it. But I think the two also have something in common, and that is for me sort of like the fruity bubblegummy feel. But the Oriental is just it's for me it's like totally addictive.
And it has a great fixative quality to it
Yeah.
as well. Yeah, it really it establishes florals in a great way. I remember just the magic that comes from certain shift spaces. Wonderful. And if I'm not mistaken, a shift space would that be hydroxycitronel that's used with methylene? If am I right or am I wrong? Laura can help me. Still rusty. I have to clear the cobwebs from my head because it's been so long. But I think the shift space involves using hydroxycitronel, which that could segue into another one. Do you want to talk a little bit about Muguet?
Oh, but yeah, about Lily of the Valley.
Lily of the Valley.
I'm
Yeah.
just checking if I have any materials here which are sort of like Lily of the Valley. I don't think I have Lilial in here or Lyral.
R.I.P.
But these are, you have them?
I do.
Oh, you do. Yeah, so these are really nice materials to create a lovely muguet. And also, I don't know, have you ever made like a Lily of the Valley accord or something like it?
With varying levels of success, yes.
I find it's funny because it seems such a simple flower, but I find it very difficult to make one that is that has the delicacy of the actual flower. I like some aquatic notes in there too, to put in there, and maybe some rosy notes like a PEA to put in the Lily of the Valley. But what are you smelling now? You have Liral or Lilial?
Go figure. I found the Civertol that we were talking about earlier. Let's rewind for a second because I just want to, and then we'll go back to, just because I'm excited that I found it. So Civertol, this is actually produced by IFF, International Flavors and Fragrances, and this is what I was describing as that imparting in gardenia that earthy, rooty, vegetal, turnip, radish quality to it, which I think, yeah, totally. It's like silvery. It's almost metallic. I love it. And it totally smells like a root vegetable.
Is it cold when you smell it? Does it have
it's a cold? Yeah, it almost has that trigeminal effect to the nose where it's like, ooh, this feels like this literally was pulled out of the earth. Yeah, it's a cooling kind of quality. So cool though, is literally and figuratively. Very, it would behoove you to see if you can locate some Civertal and experiment with it, because I think that it would be, in my humble opinion, because I made a really successful gardenia base, like an accord.
Mm-hmm.
And it was I really think it was the Civertal that was it. That's what made it feel fleshy and real and tactile. Like it really just smells like a gardenia at its peak because of this. Yeah.
It's interesting that you mentioned the metallic facet of this material.
Yeah.
Again, yeah, it's not something you would expect thinking of ingredients to make floral accords, but yeah, that, and I like the coldness.
Yeah,
So
for sure.
Good for contrasts.
Yeah, totally. So I think that I don't know if I have the Lyral and the Lilial here with me.
I'll check my cover. Let me have a look.
I do have a lot of other Lily of the Valley materials, though.
I have Lily Floor.
That's one I have. Magif, IFF Magif, Firmenich Mayal.
Oh, I have
Lilistralis. I
have Lilial here.
Oh, wonderful. And I have Majantal, which is a newer material that's quite nice. So tell us a little bit about Lilial, because some folks might be aware of the restriction and then eventual, I think it is now officially banned, or am I mistaken?
Yeah, it's I think since now maybe a year or a little longer, I'm not sure, because in the shop where I work at, like a lot of perfumes, they were either not available anymore, at least for the EU, or they were reformulated because of Lilial. And it's lovely. I'm like, it smells so good. Why should it be banned? I mean, it's really awful. It's
we could start a whole other live stream on that.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, that's, to me, talking about banning and restricting materials, because as you said in your introduction, I draw and I paint, and it's the same thing as saying to me, okay, like red, from now on, like 1% in your composition on your painting can be red, or you cannot use this type of blue anymore.
Right.
If you think about it, it's insane, but yeah, it's just like another thing they take away from the palette. The other hand, I think, like if they take things away from your palette, you just have to be more creative and work around it. So I think every disadvantage has its advantage. This was a saying by a famous Dutch football player, so I'm not gonna credit myself for that. But anyway, back to Lilial. So it's definitely floral, but what I notice immediately, it's for me sort of like wet, watery, sweet, not too sweet, but has some sweetness to it, and green even, and maybe rose is in my mind, but I would even say it has sort of like a rosy touch to it as well. But I love how like it's watery. For me, it's like flower water. I don't know if something like that exists, but it smells like this. Very delicate. Would be really great in aquatic perfumes as well, if you want to give it a slight floral accent. Very gentle.
Yeah. And a lot of perfumers argue that, or those who work with materials argue that it would be very difficult to replace. But like you were mentioning earlier, I try to be a half glass full type of guy, and I think that there are some materials that can bring it close to that. As best as it can. And there's some newer materials that are on the market that, at least when I was analyzing some of the newer ones, that I felt like it was, they come very close. And it was even then, this we're talking about 3 years ago, there were these fears that eventually Lyral and Lilia would be banned, and now they are. So I do have faith in the technologists, the ones who create the new materials, the innovations, that we may see sort of a renaissance with some of the newer materials out. I do have a few of them here, a few different examples, and each has a sort of a a different facet to them. And one that I remember enjoying is Mayol from Firmenich. And what I recall is this sort of brought out kind of the woodier character of Lily of the Valley, because it is there. Lily of the Valley is white and it's green, and it's you can get different colors from it. But with Mayol, there is this sort of this. I'm gonna smell a little bit of it here. Yeah, and so it has that same sort of current in it that you would get from the hydroxycitronelle, which is another big part of muguet. But it's also, it smells kind of like oak trees. Oh. Yeah, acorns and oak. It's fascinating. Like I could see, this is another thing that's cool too, is that materials that may originally have an intention of being used towards one type of note or accord, for the perfumer to realize either accidentally or deliberately, like this could be used for an entirely different idea. And I've wondered if Mayol would be good to use if somebody wanted to create like an oak wood note. You know what I mean? Along with like oak wood absolute, and putting the two together with some other things. But yeah, it does kind of remind me of the smell of like oak wood. It's kind of nice. I have a ton of them here, though. Each one of them is interesting in the way that they impart like a very specific type of facet. It's a nice one. I would recommend checking Mayol out. And it's supposed to be a really good blender as well.
Oh,
so It's one of those that you can use in a larger quantity, kind of like Magnolin. Magnolin is a good blender.
I have that one here as well.
Yeah,
but it's something here.
So I did star a comment. Philippe asked, "Do you have any insight about the tuberose and Nuit de Bakelite?" Insight. I think that what's great about it is it's sort of like the whole is far greater than the sum of its parts. Like to me, it's not necessarily a tuberose fragrance. It is a lot of things that are converging together to create what is the fragrance Nuit de Bakelite. So the tuberose there is not, it's sort of like a supporting player rather than the star. But I guess those are my 2 cents on it. Are you familiar with that one?
I've smelled it once only at a shop here in Amsterdam, but I don't have it on my mind. I did actually on my table in front of me select a lot of white floral perfumes, and there's quite a lot of tuberose in here that I have in front of me. So it's like Moonbloom, Carl Flower, one by Paris. Yeah, so I have some here, but in the Fracas, of course, but the Nuit de Bakelite, I don't really have it on my mind. So
yeah, I love it. I think it's. I mean, I don't really use this word too often because it's played out, but I feel like it's as close to what a modern masterpiece would be. That being said, a perfume masterpiece doesn't necessarily mean a commercial masterpiece, because it would be quite challenging to the average perfume consumer, because it is just so green forward and stemmy and vegetal and cold that it would be alienating to somebody who likes something that's a little bit more, accessible. But I live for that kind of stuff, so it was a natural for me to have fallen in love with Nuit de Bakelite. Felix asks, what is your favorite muguet? Catwans, Guerlains, Dior's. He wishes he could smell new interpretations that are convincing. I don't know. What are some of the muguet, the lilies of the valley that you enjoy, Chester?
Well, I have. I was gifted by a friend, Diorissimo.
Oh yes, I have a little tiny mini version of that. That's the same version as that. I think it's from the 90s.
Yeah. So this I just adore. It's just so, it makes me puts me in a romantic mood, and I would say it's gentle, but it's very present as well. And I haven't really found a lot of lily of the valley perfumes um, that really can compete with this. I do have, I think, Muguet by Caron in the old Picot bottles. Picot, if I pronounce it well. And another one I love is by a French brand, Olisa Legrand. Do you know the brand?
Oh, I love Elisa Legrand.
Let me see.
I have a few. One of my favorite fragrances of them all, to be honest.
So I have Muguet de Fleury, and
Uh-huh.
actually I fell actually for this brand because of
Yeah.
their artworks. As you know,
Yes.
they're so
Yeah.
beautifully decorated. So
Right. Right.
this is a Lily of the Valley, which I have to say I don't really wear it a lot, but I just bought
Yeah.
it because I love it so much. Yeah, it's a very fresh yet very tender Lily of the Valley.
Mm.
Not so watery, I would say. It's definitely a floral. I mean, it's not a quiet Lily of the Valley,
Mm-hmm.
but I really like this one. So yeah, my favorites is it's this and it's Diorissimo. These are the two Lily of the Valley perfumes, and that I like. And what I find interesting, I don't know if you've noticed it, but I talk a lot to customers in the shop where I work. And so sometimes we have these consultations where we also smell raw materials, and I don't always tell them what they're smelling. And so we
Mm-hmm.
talk about naturals, synthetics, but also about nature identical ones. So the Lily of the Valley, it's obviously like a reconstruction of the Lily of the Valley. And then people smell it and they always say, yeah, it smells like soap, it smells so old fashioned. And I don't know, is it, but I don't think that today there are a lot of big, I could be wrong, eh? But that there are a lot of big commercial perfumes featuring Lily of the Valley. It seems to really, I would say, a thing of the past. But maybe you know, Joseph, because I haven't found any modern new Lily of the Valley perfumes. Maybe this is a flower that I don't know, our grandmothers really loved. I'm not sure, but do you know what do you think about that?
Well, as far as like a mainstream, no. If we're thinking more in a niche on a niche level, which one could argue that niche is the new mainstream at this point.
It's why it's getting there, maybe.
But actually, Felix mentions a favorite of mine, which I don't know if it's still even in production, but Muguet Porcelain.
Oh,
Jean-Claude Ellena's from Hermes, which is one of my favorite. That's actually one of my favorite Muguets.
when was that released?
Ooh, I think it was like one of his last before Christine Nagel took over. 2014 maybe. I could be
Oh,
wrong. So it's
that
been a
is
little while.
that is
Yeah,
it's
he
pretty
did.
recent.
Yeah, it is. So I'll give you a little background, and I've discussed this before in my writing, and when I did a whole week on Lily of the Valley fragrances, that I have a very strong affinity, a very close connection with Lily of the Valley, because some of my earliest scent memories as a child were that of the Lily of the Valley that grew in my backyard. So I learned about Lily of the Valley very early on. So it's really firmly implanted in scent memory. So I found that the two that most closely approximate the facets of Lily of the Valley are, to me, in fact, Diorissimo and Muguet Porcelain. And some people
Mm.
argue that the Muguet Porcelain has this watery, aqueous, almost melon-like facet that they don't favor. But to me, that is essential to the watery, aqueous
Yeah,
effect of the, if you approach the Lily of the Valley still in the ground. As we know, if you were to put together a bouquet of Lily of the Valley, it's very brief before they start to wither. But it is the Lily of the Valley still in the ground. Still, you go close, or you just pick it up and you just pick it, and for that first hour that you have it before it really starts to wither, it has that watery,
yeah.
um, almost like a melon-like quality to the top notes. And I think that Jean-Claude Ellena captured that so wonderfully. And it's what makes it sort of distinct from the classical muguet that we look at when we think of another one that I have a fond, that I have appreciation for, Muguet de Coty, which Muguet de Coty, which is still smelled great into the 70s and into the 80s. Served, there was actually a base, Muguet de Coty, which served as the core of Diorissimo. And the thing that is lacking in that base, as famous and iconic as that base is a lot of that watery quality. And my argument for that is that we didn't have as many aquatic kind of materials. If you think about it, at most we would see a melon start to service, and if we're thinking of Edmund Rudnitska, I think he was approximating it with Diorissimo. And then when we would start to really see that come into play, Eau Sauvage, and then finally Diorella. But with new technologies, I think that Jean-Claude Ellena had in his disposal maybe a couple more things that could really bring that into fruition. Does that make sense?
Yeah. No, because what you say, definitely the watery facet is really important when it comes to capturing the essence of the lily of the valley.
Yeah.
I mean, it can't be a dry lily of the valley. It has to have that watery quality.
Yeah. So the ones that I have that are Muguet for is that Muguet de Coty, Diorissimo, Muguet Porcelain, Cavatina, and I think it's a really great modern lily of the valley from Dusita. Cavatina is great.
Oh yeah.
And I think that that's an example of where some of these modern materials, in the absence of Lyral and Lilial, can put together can build a great lily of the valley. And I think that's one of the better, more modern ones. So yeah. So obviously I have an enthusiasm for it. I could keep going.
Yeah, so it's tuberose and lily of the valley. Those are the two white flowers.
I think we covered all of them. We made good time because we're going to hit the next hour. We talked about tuberose, gardenia, a little bit of orange blossom. Jasmine, I think maybe so much has already been said about it, but we glossed over it. And then Muguet, lily of the valley. I think we did a great job for the first hour.
Yeah, I think so too.
Awesome. All right, so we'll be back, folks, in just a little bit, and in the next hour, we're going to talk about scent and intuition. So
yes,
back in a moment. We'll be right back. Okay, and we are back for hour 2. We're going to discuss using our feeling and our intuition and that instinct, the instinctual side, all those aspects that make us human animals in a way, versus the analysis of perfume, where we deconstruct based on what we smell as far as materials, themes, accords, cultural stuff, social, all that kind of stuff, all that baggage, if you will. So we're going to get started with that conversation. I do see that a few people had dropped in. We have Just Add Light, welcome. And Rachel does confirm that Muguet Porcelain was the last that JCE did for Hermes. Muguet from Coty, the vintage is really nice. Yes, Muguet de Coty was really good up into the 80s, I think, even. And things started to go downhill when I think that they want to invest less money on these old granny Muguets, lilies of the valley in the 90s. All right, we're going to bring Chester back here. And hey, welcome back.
Hey, thank you.
So tell me, this was actually your idea for a topic, and I thought it was brilliant. What prompted you to choose this as a topic of discussion?
I've had various discussions about this topic with friends and also with some perfumers, and also noticing in I would say, as a consumer expert, when I work in the shop, a lot of people, when they come in and they select a perfume, they will ask me about notes. What are their notes, or what's in there? So they really literally want to know what they smell, and or they have read notes like a pyramid of fragrantica, and come in with a certain expectation. Like if you love tuberose, you have an expectation of it. Or if you hate tuberose, and it says tuberose on the bottle in the name, you have an expectation of it. And I think kind of like, especially when with the drawing I do, I literally had to sometimes not look at the packaging and just like simply focus on the scents. And connect it to my feeling. And I think that's also a good thing to do when you buy a perfume. And even if you make perfumes like we do, which also tends to sort of program you like, oh, what's in there? What's this? But I think it's important to connect with what we feel, what are our emotions, and to go even further. If we talk about communication, and I think scent is like the ultimate way to communicate, you can really use perfume to communicate. Like, if you want to have the image that you are happy, even though you're feeling sad, you can really pick a perfume that has that feeling to it. So that's how I got the idea a little bit from the customers in the shop, and also through connecting my art with perfume, or perfume to art, visualizing it. I thought, like, what we feel when we smell some perfume, it's the most important thing, more important than the notes and what's in the perfume. That might be interesting on a technical level, but basically, if you pick a perfume, it's the emotion that is most important. And I think even when you meet someone and you smell them, whether it's their body scent or their perfume, that's also about feeling. So this is how I got to think about this topic when you asked me about the topic for this live stream. So yeah, this is a little bit how I came to think about it. So I don't know, Joseph, when you buy a perfume, do you deconstruct it without realizing it, or do you go for what you feel?
Well, this is interesting because I had taken so much time off from thinking about the construction of perfume, and I found that the more time that I took away from it, the more time passed, I was able to return to that more intuitive approach. But now, it's interesting because I'm feeling more of an integration. Like I'm able to integrate the two, say, for example, with my writing. And I think that this is something that needs to be a conscious decision, because if I don't make a conscious decision, then I can go down that rabbit hole and start talking about materials. I might lose the reader after a while. So I think that as long as I'm very intentional with writing about perfume, then I can get myself into that mode where I'm not getting too technical. You know what I mean? Like I can just start thinking about what are the emotions, what are the feelings, the sensations that I get from smelling something, and just have it become more of like an exploratory exercise rather than an exercise in whether or not I can identify, what the perfumer did. I can get more in touch with like, what is this? What are the sensations that I feel, and where does it take me? That's the thing too. Where does it take you?
Where does it take you? Yeah, I think that's a very, very good point what you make. And it's like there's a lot of storytelling, as you know, in perfume and marketing, which is understandable. But in the end, it's about your story, because you take that perfume, you put it on your body, which, if you think about it, is quite an intimate act, and you carry it around with you in your daily business, when you're sad, when you're happy. So it becomes like a really integral part of your being, really. So say,
Right.
where do you take it? So yeah, I think it's really, really important to connect with your feelings when you smell something. And when we were talking about these materials, you notice that some of the materials, when you smell them, the effect is really visceral, like with Scatol. I mean, that's like an extreme example, but it's the same with perfumes. Sometimes you smell something, you smell somebody, and it like really touches you. It makes you happy, gives you butterflies, or you might like the smell, but you think it's a sad smell. And I think these are really important things to pay attention to.
Mm. Well, it reminds me, just earlier I had an appointment with a dentist, and the dental hygienist made it a point to say how beautiful I smelled.
Oh, this
And
is cute.
I was wearing Le Troisième de Caron, a classic men's fragrance from Caron, the third man. And I just didn't see it coming because I'm just so used to not getting compliments.
No.
I mean, the whole compliments culture is so absurd because it's so infrequent that when it happens, it is so meaningful because that person's really actually noticing something.
I like how they said you smell beautiful.
Yes. What the perfume you're wearing, and then she called it perfume, and I'm like, yes, you're not calling it cologne. Yeah, or I smell beautiful, or maybe she didn't say I did. So my memory does tricks on me. But I think she said, the perfume that you're wearing is so beautiful, and she just couldn't stop smelling. Like it smelled so great, and to me that kind of speaks to that ability, when you're wearing something, to have that potential effect of igniting certain feelings. And I think that is what's great about perfume, is that you're not only do you have the capacity to do that on your own, but it's when you observe your environment around you, whether it is somebody who is wearing something that sparks something in your mind, or just anything in the ether, in nature, in your environment. Oh, also, you were discussing in your bio savory scents and the smell of food.
Yes.
And that whole thing, and how powerful that is too. Like, I mean, the adjacency between taste and smell, it's they're so close. A taste needs smell. So I just loved that that it's one of your favorite spaces to experience, is just how the smell of food and culinary. Have you thought about perhaps doing a series or themes that focus on that? Maybe and also it wouldn't be necessarily traditionally gourmand, because we usually think of sweet. You mentioned savory.
No, I mean savory.
Yeah.
The idea, actually, when I first got this idea, was I was on a holiday, and I met someone who had, I think, eaten a lot of garlic. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
And they were wearing Blue by Chanel, but through the Chanel, I could smell this garlic. And some people might think, oh, this is not a nice sensation, but I was actually quite exciting the idea that something that you've eaten like comes through your pores, like right out of your skin. I thought that was such a beautiful thought. And for me, food is so connected, at least Indonesian food, it's so connected to who I am. And so when I started doing some perfume courses, I thought like, yeah, okay, I can study existing perfumes and try to
Right.
like recreate them or make my own perfumes. But where would you start? What's closest to me? And then I thought, yeah, it's food, because very often when I make my Indonesian foods, we make what we call a bumbu. It's kind of like sort of like a pay. You
Yeah.
grind all the herbs and the things, and that smell when I make that, and like
Mm.
you mentioned, I always think like, oh, just a touch of jasmine, a touch of this could be a perfume. I think
Yeah.
that the connection between what we put in our bodies and what comes out through our skin is just amazing. And for me, like, it makes sense in a way to have salty smells on your skin. We all find it natural. If you are at the beach and you come out of the sea and there's sort of like this even taste of salt, or this salty um, facet even over your suntan lotion, we all accept that. But with food, I think it can be really interesting to venture into that direction in perfumery. And I know for many people, maybe it's weird to smell like curry. They think, or it might be weird. But I think if you enhance these fragrances with other ingredients, it could be totally acceptable as a perfume. For me, those are really natural smells to have on the body. And for me, very connected. Um, to who I am, basically. So for me, it's logical to take literally a recipe I like I told you about the coconut savory garlicky lime
Yeah.
salad thing.
Yeah.
But that's the first perfume I made based on a savory backbone, and it was already years ago. I finished it last year finally, and like if I compared like the first mod to like the last mod, they're like so far apart, because the first one was super savory. I thought like no one's gonna wear that. It's just too savory. And now it's sort of like still savory, but it's also a perfume, which I think it's nice. But yeah, for me, like that starting point, the savory things, I think that's really an interesting territory to explore. I'm working on one right now, which is inspired by a meat dish. Um,
Oh, really?
yeah, it's called empal, at least the meat dish. It's an
Mhm.
Indonesian meat, so it's basically sort of like dried cooked meat, and they have these coriander seeds which they crush, and then they have like palm sugar, and they mix that, and they sort of dry fry it in the pan. And the sensation of the coriander seeds and the sugar, and then the fattiness of the meat, I find it just so um yeah, exciting, and can't really put words to it. But I think it's like almost like a warm savory eau de cologne type of feel. The coriander seeds have sort of like almost like a neroli type thing in there, and
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
like that. And that's when you smelled that ingredient, when I said, is it gold? Was it the
Yeah.
silver tone, or was it the mayol? Which was it?
I guess Civertol, the
Silver
Civertol,
tone.
the yeah.
I really like those things too. When something really, when you think in temperatures, this smells cold, this smells warm. So when you're
Yeah.
making savory stuff, it's really interesting to put something cold or something um, like literally warm in there, that you have the sensation when you open the bottle, like, oh, it's some cold coming out of there. So
Right.
for the salads perfume, I used sort of like an iciness in there to give it some freshness, which you would have if you have these salads. So yeah. Yeah, so talk about emotions. I think that um, in making perfumes, for me, that is the one thing that I put first. Like what do I want to say with this perfume to myself first, and then when I'm ready to let it smell to other people, I'm open to suggestions, because I would like it to be wearable, but I don't
Mhm.
want to throw the idea of savory things overboard altogether. So yeah, do you know any savory perfumes? Any ones that you think they're slightly savory?
Oh
I
yeah. Yeah. There's some that do give off a savoriness, like You know what I think is pretty good with approaching spice and what would be typically flavor into applying it to fragrance would be Christopher Sheldrake with a lot of his
Hmm.
stuff, like Jeu de Peau, where he evokes that the butteriness and breadiness in this sandalwood fragrance that was unheard of until that time. Jeu de Peau, Le Participe Passé, which is kind of like this savory elements with sweet elements combining. These different kinds of I keep wanting to say flavor because it's all there's a certain edible kind of feeling, but it's not gourmand at all. Like
No.
Arabi. Um, I'm really drawn by the usage of spices and having them pushed to the front.
Yeah.
Because traditionally in perfume, you have the core of the woods and the florals and the resins flanked by spice. But I love it when a perfumer, they really push the spices right up, right forward. And it may be too much for the average,
Yeah.
everyday perfume wearer. But to that person who just loves to be stimulated, I think another perfumer, Lorenzo Villoresi with his Spezzi. Spezzi
Yes,
is
that's a gorgeous one.
so savory to me
Yeah.
because he is highlighting these herbs and spices. That's what a showcase is. Not a spicy floral or a spicy woods. It is the spices. And I think he does an excellent job at using spice and herbs in his work as well. And I'm a huge fan of cumin, which I know is an acquired taste.
Yes, it
So,
is. It's
and
very
I love
sexy,
it.
though, I have to say.
Sexy
Super
because
sexy.
it's so cuminaldehyde. It has it. I don't know this for certain because I haven't really studied the chemistry of cuminaldehyde, but I could swear cuminaldehyde has some similarities in its chemical makeup as to some of the things that we may find in human perspiration. So
Yes.
that's why it evokes that human warmth and sensuality to me. But I think it's like a cilantro kind of thing. Um, some people they smell it and they get that feeling, and other people smell it and they think BO. But to
Yeah. Yeah.
me, BO isn't a bad thing. It's body odor. It is
Yeah.
like human sensuality and warmth. So I think Declaration with that cardamom and that cumin together, so sensual. There's a great one, an early one from Diptyque called L'Autre. L'Autre is the in my review, I said the three C's, the three
Mhm.
great C's in spice: cardamom, caraway, and oh no, wait, cumin. Well, I don't even think cardamom's in it actually. Cumin, caraway, and coriander together. Coriander is another one too.
Yeah,
Coriander has that
I love
sensuality.
coriander. That's really, really nice.
There's a lot of great ones. God, what
Yeah.
is the other cumin one that I really enjoy? There are a few of them. Parfum de Pierre,
Mm.
Asiade, lovely.
I
Um,
think Salome by Papillon has
Papillon, yep.
cumin in
Hmm.
there.
Yeah,
Very, very
yeah.
sexy perfume.
Very,
I
very.
have talking about the florals. I put one here, which it's a Japanese brand.
Let's see that. I'm gonna put you in close up
Can
so we
oh
can see
wait,
the
I
bottle.
have to yeah
There we
yeah.
go.
You see
So we
it?
have Hiraku.
Yes, it's by
Hiraku.
perfume brand Satori from Tokyo, and this is a Magnolian perfume. Magnolia,
Mm.
and I'm not sure what she put tuberose in it because I met her before she made this one. She said I'm working on a tuberose perfume, but in the end I think it's magnolia and other things. But when you smell it, this is a perfume which for me it's savory, and I always wonder
Mm.
if you would smell it, if you would pick up the same
Yeah.
feeling I have. But when I smell this, you get the flowers, you get there's like melon in there, and
Hmm.
there's the magnolia and the sweetness, but it's like salty for me as well. And for me, this smells like if you would have flowers, like a bowl of flowers with melon, and then this Italian ham on top of the melon. That smells like
Ooh.
this. And from a strip, if you don't like that smell, you might say, "Oh, I don't want it. I want to try it."
Yeah.
But on the skin, it really blends well, especially when I'm sweating a bit. This might
Yeah.
not really sound nice, but sort of like goes well with your body odors. I think that's nice if a perfume adds something to your own smell. If it's
Yeah.
and I think savory perfumes, they can really do that. So I'm not sure if I'm going the right direction with this, but I think savory things and the things you mentioned, like cumin, they're just like ingredients that go so well with our bodies.
No,
That's
I
my thought on it.
agree. I agree. And especially when it's an artful hand who knows how to use it. Um, I was just going to mention, I brought up my own comment. Please, if you're tuned in, don't forget to hit the like button. I don't think I can see how many likes that we have right now through my computer because I don't want to risk. But I'm going to take a look here. Or if somebody in the chat can tell me how many likes we have. Likes are important for YouTubers. There are these algorithms, there are these systems in place by YouTube that if you have enough likes, if you have enough comments, if you have enough bells, whistles, it helps with the channel. So if you could hit the like, it would be greatly appreciated. And I also wanted to mention, Chester, just to highlight what you said about paper versus skin. This is something for everybody to remember, that paper is going to be one thing and skin is going to be another.
Yeah.
If I only relied on paper with certain fragrances, I probably wouldn't have discovered some of my favorites of all time, because the paper has a very different evaporation rate. So the paper, you're just hit with that top note for a long time, top notes, top notes, top notes. But when you have it hit on the skin, the warmth of your skin immediately, it gets the train going. It's like choo, 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 choo,
Exactly.
choo, choo, and it warms up and then it blooms. So it's so important to try fragrances on skin. Use paper only as sort of a cursory guide, but ultimately use your skin. Let your skin bring out all the qualities in a fragrance. Italian ham, yes. I believe in the possibility that something that smells so savory that it would remind you of a ham can. It does not necessarily mean you're going to smell foul. I think that I really think that it's possible for it to smell quite lovely. And I'm sure some sort of Reddit website will edit that and make a mockery out of it, that I want to smell like meat. But I think something, you know how it is on the internet. But meatiness, there's a certain umami. Maybe if we don't say meaty might have an association for, but that, that quality of umami, where it's sort of, umami in flavor, meaning that it's a little salty, a little savory, a little bit of that meaty, but not necessarily from meat. Or you think of mushrooms are very umami, for example. 15, thank you so much, Christy. I appreciate your helping us with that. 15, let's try to aim for 25 while we are reaching the last half hour here. Megaran, hi, all from Melbourne. Scent of the day, Guerlain, Vetiver, Listerine bottle, and
nice.
aftershave of the day, Aramis. Very nice choices. Hi, welcome back. Thank you for the little heart. Thank you.
Vetiver itself has already, if you smell the vetiver material, that is almost in savory direction.
So I've smelled some vetiver absolute. The absolute extraction of vetiver is kind of meaty. It feels it's very nutty and meaty and
smoky.
Fleshy, smoky. Yeah, for sure. Vetiver I think vetiver could be very useful in imparting like that savory quality in general, because salt doesn't actually have a smell to it, but saltiness is a sensation.
Yes.
And you can get that saltiness from other things because it's all the flavor that the salt brings out. You could think of like all different kinds of aromatic materials that could create that effect. I'll leave it to you because this is something that you're enthusiastic about. Can you think of some other things that could impart a saltiness?
I think birch tar is something that comes to mind when used in perfumes. It has that sort of like saltiness. And I got this really interesting material from it's a pyrazine. I think it's a bacon pyrazine. I got it from Harrison Sherwood's So that really smells like salted bacon. I think that's a really nice note. I'm not sure how to use it though, but I will. And I also have a very nice basmati ingredient. I think it's also a synthetic.
Nice.
So kind of like would be nice to like combine this with milky,
Right.
creamy ingredients, coconut for sure, like C18, and then put this basmati in there. Um, yeah,
I
so those are.
actually, oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Chester.
No, go ahead.
No, one of my favorite releases of this year has a steamed rice accord, and I think it's brilliant. It's from Robert Piguet, Zazen.
Oh, okay.
Yes,
I have to smell that.
it
I
is the
got. Yeah.
first time that I smelled a convincing rice, steamed rice. It feels like steamed rice to the nose. Like my olfactory bulb was just saying, "This is exactly how it feels," and it lingers for a while in the composition, like for a good first half hour to 45 minutes, which I think is impressive for
Yes.
capturing that.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it's one of my favorite releases so far. Well, so far this year, the year's almost over, but it will definitely be, I think, in my top five. Zazen from Robert Piguet. And I was surprised how wonderful it is. But yeah, rice, bran, bread, there's bran absolute. I have some bran absolute. So it's an absolute extraction from the bran of wheat,
Mm.
which is very savory. And oh goodness, what was I going to mention? I hate when I lose my train of thought because I get so excited and then like I don't even know where to go with anything. I was just thinking of some other materials that impart that savoriness. So we mentioned birch tar, definitely, and in some cases out there, almost a little too much. Like bois sicard is a little too hammy even for me. Bois sicard from what's the name of the house? It's the house that has the gold flecks in the bottles. I can't remember the name of it, but that smells like smoked meat, like
Yeah.
exactly like smoked meat.
They're quite like because savory is so wide. Just like you say sweet. If somebody says I like sweet or I don't like sweet, there's so many types of sweetness. So you have like jammy sweetness, you have like soft vanilla sweetness, you have like candy, so many sweetness. So I think with savory, like the smoky salty thing, it's one side, especially when it's smoky and it gets towards bacon. But I think salt, I mean, picture salt, the sensation of salt, and like with, let's say, tuberose, and some aquatic under there, but like the salty things in there, and even like maybe the root of the ylang ylang. We use it in foods, also in Indonesia. I think it's related to that flower. It's called kencur, and in taste, it's something very bitter, and in smell, it is like bitter, kind of like ylang, but it's savory for me at least because I associate it with that dish. So there's lots of ingredients. I think that we could like give a stage in savory perfumes. Other than like smoky things, I think we all know like smokiness and saltiness, but like a complete savory perfume, yeah, I think that could be really interesting. There's some sandalwoody perfumes which already have like a savory feel. There's one by Parle-moi de Parfum. It's called
Mm.
Milky Musk. And it's very easy to just think in the sandalwood musky direction. But if you have the word savory in your brain and you smell it, it gets really like a soft, milky saltiness on your skin.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I think mindset, when we talk about feelings and emotion, when we smell, it's also about like what's your mindset, what's your mood, what are you thinking of, what do you feel that really has an impact on what you smell. So to keep an open mind, I think that's the best thing to smell. But because we were talking about, smelling and feeling and emotions versus deconstructing a scent. I think even with the idea of what a perfume should smell like, of what is our concept of a perfume, that is also something that might be interesting to kind of like let go, because sometimes you notice you have perfume brands present you with a smell sensation. You're like, oh, this smells nice. It doesn't necessarily strike me as a perfume per se, but like just a whole new olfactive experience, no, a new, an addition really to the world of perfumes. There's some really nice brands that make unusual scents. Like I like Yorm Studio, for instance.
Ah, yes,
They have
yes.
some really weird perfumes. They have
Some
one which I think it's called Arborist, and that's talking about sweat. If I would have to
mhm.
describe it, I would
I
say
know
it's a,
arborist. Yeah,
you know it.
I
Have you
do.
smelled it?
I'm
Yeah.
fond of it.
Do you think
Um,
it has something sweaty?
for sure. It smells to me like somebody who's done a lot of hard work out
Yes,
and yeah,
exactly. I was
like
thinking the same thing. I
like
was thinking,
dried perspiration. I know that
yes,
some people out there are like, oh God, that doesn't sound appealing at all. But to me, hi, go figure. But it's the combination of that with these tree resins, and it feels very outdoors, like an outdoors. It
yeah,
smells like an outdoorsman. Like I feel like I have been I've been chopping wood for
exactly.
an
Yeah,
hour, and
yeah.
and I'm surrounded by pine trees, and it's great. It's a brilliant creation for sure. I just want to quickly just to direct the attention to the chat, just so I'm not neglecting it. Philippe, thank you very much. Atelier des Ors, that's who does Boisicar. Thank you very much. And
Oh,
Alora mentioned something interesting about the savory quality of Cocoa Absolute being similar smelling to Vegemite, the
mm.
spread popular in Australia, having that sort of salty, savory quality in its concentration, which now that I think of it, having some of it of my own, I do recall that it did have much more of a savory quality than I expected. I think, is that supposed to be milky sulfural? I would I'd love it if it were called mulky, because mulky to me is like some sort of like a so it sort of evokes something, even though it's not a word that, milky, yes. Mulky. Oh, and also I was going to mention to you, Chester, I have a number of pyrazines from Harry Sherwood as well, like a
Oh,
pea pyrazine, potato pyrazine,
oh.
all of these fascinating, earthy, savory, um, vegetal, interesting
Did you
pyrazines are.
smell that potato pyrazine already?
Yeah, yeah,
How is it? Does it have something wet as well? Because that's what I
it
imagine with the potato.
yeah, it's like wet. It's wet, it's like humusy, kind of like earthy, and rooty. I could imagine if you really wanted to create like, a very earthy, rooty, vegetal perfume, you could take a trace of the potato pyrazine and a little bit of the Civertal, and then throw some other things together, and you could really create a scent of the undergrowth
Yeah,
in the woods by using them. Yeah, fascinating. Pyrazines are fascinating things, and as we know, they're very powerful too. So
yeah.
yeah, you really have to dilute them. Just checking the chat here. Okay. All right. So back to the discussion. We have about 40 more minutes here. We'll run over just a little bit. So just getting back to scent and sensuality too, which I think is a big part of this intuitive approach to perfume. What do you think of can you think of certain materials that are a little bit less obvious that could feel very sexual or sensual, or erogenous in perfume?
Materials.
Yeah, yeah, I mean, there are the
Um,
obvious ones, like people think, like civets and musks and
yeah, civet
yeah,
musk, Indo,
yeah,
we mentioned those. Well, actually, I think the tuberose absolute, like the smell of that. So not
yeah,
like the sort of like romanticized tuberose, but sort of the smell of the tuberose absolute, which is so sort of meaty and leathery. I find that really Yeah, it turns me on. That smell is
Yeah.
really a nice smell.
I just want to mention to Allure very quickly. We did discuss before you jumped back on. We did a whole discussion on cumin. Absolutely, 100%. We were talking about favorites in cumin fragrances as
Yeah.
well. But yeah, good call. Yeah, the tuberous absolute, some other floral absolute. I think the carnation absolute too. There's something very sensual about that one. Very
Yeah.
like an animalic quality that I didn't expect in carnation absolute.
Yes.
And
Osmanthus?
yeah, yeah. The absolute has this. It's not, people say leathery, but I think that there's something kind of, there's a little bit of funk there too
Yeah.
in the dry down that I
And
like. Yeah.
I didn't purchase it. It's always when you get home after like a class or something and you regret, why didn't I purchase it? But I
Right.
smelled violet leaf.
Okay. Yeah.
That I thought that was kind of sexy. I mean, you have your idea of what a violet perfume smells like, but when you smell violet leaf, it's like, wow, that's a pretty sexy material.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
For sure.
could even work in a savory perfume as well, like animalic savory.
Honestly, when I smell violet leaf in isolation, it reminds me of vegetables like spinach, like it just like leafy greens, like leafy vegetables. Kind of, it's kind of weird, but it's a little more than that. Obviously, it's not literal, but I could see that really working well in putting together sort of like a salad type of effect. You know what I mean? Did we lose you? I think you went frozen. I was wondering you were looking so intently. I think we lost you, Chester. I hope that we can have you join back. It looks like your image had frozen, but I'll just stand by here and hopefully. I was like wondering, like, okay. This isn't the first time that happened on the stream, but hopefully we'll have Chester back in just a moment. Philippe, that's another great example. Narcissus absolute, because of those cresols, and there's something kind of funky and leathery and horsey and stably about Narcissus at times, and I think that has sort of a sensual quality to it. I think that's a great suggestion as well. Enjoy your dinner. Yes, continue to listen in if you can. We're going to be on for about 15 more minutes. Hopefully, we'll have Chester back in a moment. Felix also says, I think some ingredients that are considered to be feminine or masculine can work well on the opposite gender to create a sexy effect for sure. Sort of like, you're wearing your partner's fragrance to remind you of how they smell. Yeah, for sure. I know. I hope he's back soon. It's always sad when we lose someone. I think the last time this happened, it was when we had Fragrance Matt, and he could never come back. But we'll see. We're going to stick around a little bit. Regardless, even if we can't get Chester back on, which I do hope that we can, we'll just run to the full 2 hours here, and then wrap up for this episode. So if anybody else is in the chat and wants to give some other suggestions for maybe less obvious examples of notes or accords or what have you that would impart a sensuous, sexy quality to a perfume, I'd like to hear what your suggestions are. We have 8 people tuned in at the moment, hoping that Chester comes back, and he's back. Oh, all right, he's there. Okay.
I'm sorry.
Yes. It was so funny because I was noticing I lost my train of thought because your face was so I thought you were just really intent, and then I realized you're not moving.
No,
You're not there anymore. Okay, you're back and you're actually animated again.
Yes.
Okay, great. Where were we? Okay, so we were talking about some materials or notes, and fill in the blank here, that are less obvious examples of sensual notes. We were talking about violet leaf, and I was saying that could also really work well with what we were talking about earlier, savory things.
Yes.
like putting together sort of a salad. And something spinachy about it too. There's actually, do you know that there's actually artichoke absolute as well that can be used in perfume? I have
No idea, but
artichoke.
that would be fascinating.
Yeah, right. There's some cool ones. Yeah, I ran across that. I don't actually have some, or never did, but I
Oh, I
looked at it.
smell. I wanted to mention one perfume I recently smelled in Paris from L'Artisan Parfumeur, and they have this series called Les Potages. I don't know if you know, and they had one. I'm not sure what it was called. Something Blanc. Oh, Tonka Blanc, something like this. But it
Yeah.
opens with cauliflower in the
Oh, isn't that
note.
funny?
I was just,
Fresh cauliflower, obviously, because
yeah,
cooked cauliflower is a different story. Same thing with broccoli.
yeah.
The fresh is very different from the when you cook it. Those sulfur compounds, woof. But I can see that being a possibility if you're thinking about the fresh scent of those crucibles, those cruciferous, I think they're called, vegetables like broccoli, Brussels sprouts.
Yeah.
Another one from that series has a pea note, and not pee, not urine, but
No,
peas,
okay.
peas, like peas in a pod. Which I thought was quite nice. I wasn't too impressed with the dry down, but I was really struck by how well of a pea
Yeah.
pea vegetable note. And I wonder if he used a pea pyrazine, because that's another pyrazine.
Oh,
Pea.
did you find that on Harrison's?
Yeah, he sent me one of those, a sampling of pea pyrazine, and yeah, it really
So,
does
but
smell.
I'm guessing then that is something that fascinates you as well, with all those pyrazine, all this
Of
sort of like
course.
foodie. This is
Yeah, totally.
nice. Yeah.
Totally. Christy says I want an edamame accord. Ooh, yeah. I love the idea of it. I love the idea of exploring these edible, savory vegetables and all kinds of stuff like that. I think it's a new frontier for perfume that is very exciting. Oh, back to sensuousness. A lot of people don't realize that angelica root is really actually quite musky, because it has that exalto lead. It has one of the few um, uh, perfume materials deriving from a plant that's musky, and I think that can have a very kind of sensuous feel as well.
Yeah.
Angelica root oil, ambret seed oil. Um, so cool that these plants can have these aromatic materials that can smell sort of like animal musk.
Yeah.
It's pretty wild. But yeah, there's so many different things out there. What was I thinking? Oh, do you know about the usage of asafoetida? Do you ever heard of
No.
asafoetida?
No.
Yeah, asafoetida, the spice. They call it hing in Indian cuisine, and asafoetida shows up in traces in very green chypras, and it's very powerful. And it's sort of like, it's similar to garlic, except it doesn't have, when you use it in cuisine, it doesn't have that same after, you know how garlic will linger for a long time?
Yeah.
Asafoetida is great because it's like, if you want to use something that has the same sensation of garlic, but you don't want it to be sort of the taste that keeps on giving, it's great. But there are some perfumes like Maglif from Carven, Ivoire de Mama, these green chypras, and there's asafoetida, and you think about it like something almost oniony or garlicky,
That's
like in
interesting.
traces, can really bring out that sharp greenness, that sharp verdance of vegetation and green florals and galbanum and stuff, like really bringing out those qualities. I always found that to be quite fascinating. So yeah.
Yeah, it's another material like what we mentioned before, that you don't wouldn't expect to like push another ingredient in a perfume.
Yeah.
But it could be interesting for me to try it in my savory perfumes.
Yeah, asafoetida, if you can get it as an essential oil. And as an essential oil, as you can imagine, you would have to really dilute it because it's very powerful. There's onion essential oil too, which is extremely powerful, but perfumers have been known to use in the tiniest traces to create this little je ne sais quoi, little bit of a little.
Onions, I mean, not into much, but like cumin, they have sort of like a link to body
Yeah,
odor as well, I
yeah,
think.
yeah,
So it could be interesting. Maybe with some
totally.
cinnamon, make it a little bit more warm. But I
Yeah,
think onion, cumin, this sort of like bodily smells, that can be really interesting. I think it's
yeah.
also very interesting to really know your body smells. Is maybe this sounds a bit weird, but if you think about it, even if you don't use perfume, when you use shampoo or a body, everything has fragrance in it. So it's interesting to just go a few days without fragrance products and work out, get to know your body odor. I think that's really nice. Also, when selecting perfumes, if you know a little bit how your body smells, to take that into account when applying a perfume from your collection.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. And to know, to identify where something just doesn't work well with your own body chemistry.
Yeah, exactly.
Like for me, as much as I appreciate grapefruit as a note in perfume in and of itself, when I wear something that has a very pronounced grapefruit note, it often turns really sulfurous on my skin to the point where to me, it's not pleasant, which makes sense because there are these components in grapefruit that have that quality. It's what makes it smell the way that it does. But for some reason, it becomes so pronounced on my skin that I don't find it really enjoyable on me. On somebody else or in isolation, it's a different story. The only one that has um, a notable grapefruit note that doesn't do that is Jardin sur le Nil from Hermes, one of
Hmm.
those. Yeah, that one actually, for some reason, I can get away with wearing grapefruit without that happening, which I'm lucky because every other one that I've tried, not so much. um, I mean, what's really popular right now with like fruits and gourmands. Do you think that fruity things and sweet gourmand things have the potential to be sensuous? People often say, "I
Um,
think you smell like a snack," but is smelling like a snack really a sexy thing? Unless
oh,
it's a savory snack.
that's a good question. I
Like
tend I
cake.
tend to say I don't like sweet perfumes, but when I look in my, I have a little vitrine here with all my perfumes, and I look in there. There's still quite some sweet perfumes in there. But can they be sensual?
Mm,
Yeah, I think they can be. I think maybe the way you apply them or the way you use them
mm,
can make the difference. 'Cause a lot of attention is paid to the perfume, but not
right.
so much to application. I mean, I find it very interesting when I smell people's perfumes in, let's say, places you wouldn't expect to smell it necessarily.
I know
You
what you
know,
mean. I know what you
um,
mean.
yeah. So, I mean, for instance, a part I like to scent is like the side of my body and like
Yeah,
underneath the clothes. So
yeah,
just
yeah.
like it comes up, the perfume, you catch a little waft of it. So
Right.
it's still like sweet, but it's not too much. And the same goes with like we were talking about Musk Tonkin, which took me a year to buy it because it was just I'm like, am I going to wear it? It's so animalic. And that's another perfume that I had to teach myself how to perfume myself with this particular perfume to be able to enjoy its potential. And so I think with sweet perfumes, they can be sensual. Um, I think that, but this is a personal thing. I can't speak, of course, on behalf of someone else, but I think we should use a perfume to enhance something of ourselves, but not to hide something, not to
Mm.
hide your smell. I find that always a pity if a perfume sort of like takes away your your own body smells.
I agree.
No,
I
yeah,
agree.
it has to be a nice balance between you wearing the scent, not the scent wearing you.
Exactly. I think a lot of modern mainstream releases seem to have this ability to wear the person,
Yeah.
like very very mainstream ones that where when somebody's wearing it, that's I'm smelling it and not really. It doesn't feel like it's merging; it's coalescing with the person. It's just this
Yeah.
bubble of smell. Um, and I don't think that can be said. I don't want to go into that whole tirade about like, oh, perfume was so much better back in the olden days. But I think there's something to be said about um, the age of classic perfumery, where I think that the intention was that the perfume was supposed to enhance the smell of that person who's wearing it rather than masking or replacing that smell. Um, and probably the issue today, in our modern culture, there is such an emphasis on the clean and the antiseptic and the
Yeah.
sterilized, that maybe that has had, in my opinion, in some ways, a negative impact on what has become, on what becomes popular perfume. Maybe this is why we have so many clean and unoffensive scents that are popular now, or why there are a lot of things that smell so exceedingly edible but sweet, um, because we're masking that. We're masking that the carnality,
Yeah.
you know, of our humanness. Um, and I think that, yeah, I think there's something to be said for perfumes that enhance that bring out the best qualities of that. Um, Musk Tonkin, for example, even though it's not the type that you're going to spray all over yourself because
No,
it'll be overwhelming,
definitely not. No.
it is testament to the fact that if you spray it strategically, like you said, you spray on the torso, you spray maybe just one spray on the neck, or one spray on the small of the back, or that's where the magic really happens, and it's mingling with your chemistry. And I think that that's a fascinating concept with perfume, and I think that if anybody is in doubt as to whether or not they agree with a perfume that, like in theory, like you said, like it took you so long to realize that you wanted it in your life because you weren't sure what to do with it, um, to maybe experiment with that. You have a sample of it, and it's like, oof, just put it like somewhere unconventional and see how
Yeah.
you feel about it.
Well,
I
this is
love
a
that.
funny thing with samples, is that and this is especially true when you have a sample of like a really expensive perfume, or a perfume that is, let's say, not like mainstream friendly.
Right.
Um, if you have a sample and you use that sample and you use it carefully, that's a way of perfuming yourself now. And then you get this 100 ml bottle and you're like, how am I going to use it? But just like use it as you used your sample, like tiny bits of perfume, because I tend to think that some perfumes, um uh, I mean, this is a 100 ml bottle, but I'm sure if they would sell it as like a 15 ml bottle, I would immediately start using it differently. Like, I'm not a huge fan of Chanel number 5. I got it for reference because it's such an iconic perfume. But I did buy this tiny extrait de parfum, which comes with a stopper, as you know. And actually, when I wear it like that, just like a little dab of Chanel number 5, that really works on me. It's just like a few drops. So I think we kind of have to pay attention to how to apply perfume, how to perfume ourselves. And this is different for everyone. But it can make a
Yeah.
big difference for how this creation comes alive, and as you said early on, where it takes us.
Yeah. No, yeah, no, I agree. I agree. I just think that it's so important for us to maybe take our foot off of the gas pedal a bit, and think about what is the intention for wearing the fragrance.
Exactly. Yeah.
And in this, in frag com, the fragrance community, There is this obsession with overspraying. Like, I'm going to spray a lot because I just want to lavish in it and I want to indulge in it. But that ends up having an opposite effect. Because if you're going to overdo it, you're going to overwhelm your senses. You're going to overwhelm your olfactory receptors. You're going to, it ends up being sort of the opposite of the intended, of what is intended. You know what I mean? And I think that has a lot to do with this compliments culture of, I want this validation. I want people to say something good about what I'm wearing. So I want to make sure, I want to guarantee that they're going to smell it. But I think that we're doing a disservice to ourselves because we're not actually enjoying we're not probably not enjoying the fragrance the way that it was meant to be enjoyed. That maybe we can have more fulfillment by doing, like you said, a little bit of this here and there and let it unfold on its own rather than forcing it. Like,
Yeah.
I need to know, I need to announce that this is me, my identity. I love my perfume. if we just slow down a little bit and just
and listen a little bit to the perfume, to the character, because obviously some perfumes they lend themselves for like generously spraying. I have one in my fridge by Atelier Cologne. It's Mistral Patchouli.
Oh, nice.
That's the only one I keep in my fridge. It's a really big bottle, and then when it's a hot day, I kind of like use it as a shower. But it's a patchouli, but it's a really fresh patchouli. So that fragrance for me lends itself to be applied generously, because it's not like a Baccarat Rouge or something, which I think that's a perfume that if you try just a little bit on you, not so much, because we know you're wearing Baccarat Rouge, but you can wear a little bit. It's really a powerful perfume. So I think to play with perfumes, smell them, listen to them, and it's true. I mean, if you if it's about compliments, okay, then it's about compliments. That's fine if you like that. I mean, everybody enjoys a compliment, like you did with your Caron. It's always nice if people mention something. But wouldn't it be nice if you wear something in a really subtle way and people notice it, like they've really noticed also the way you perfumed yourself? I think it's a really nice way to think about that. Like, how do we put these perfume rituals into our life? And it's not all about being loud and spraying lots of perfume, but or spray big one day and spray small the next, to see the difference.
See how different it feels. See, it all ties back together to the feeling, the fragrance, and see what a different feeling, what a different effect it is when you put a smaller amount on it and just let it sort of remind you throughout the day rather than hammer you on the head. Felix says, since different bacteria live on different parts of the body, I think mist of our body odor is, or maybe most of our body odor is dominated by bacteria transforming our secretions. Health, body odor are strongly connected. I think that there can be very alluring body odors, and there could be some alarming body odors as well, which may be a sign that you would want to talk to your physician or think about, your personal hygiene, But that's relative too, because in some parts of the world, showering twice a day is the norm, and in other parts of the world, you don't have to necessarily shower every day and feel clean. It's all relative. It's cultural relativism. And then Felix also says maybe that's why people want to cover up and replace body odor by clean smelling scents. Well, I think there's this obsession with, I don't want people to realize that I actually am dealing with this, questionable body odor, so I'm going to cover it up. But oftentimes, I suspect that that's what's happening, because sometimes I smell what seems to me to be a healthy body odor mingling, but other times I'm noticing it as more of a cover up, and it's concerning, but I don't want to judge. It's just concerning that person may be doing that. Philippe Different for everyone and for every fragrance, heck, every occasion. Yes. Hello, Bilbo Fragrance. Bilbo Fragrance. We're at 5:05 right now, and we're going to start wrapping things up here, but we'll chat just a little bit more. I'm just going to bring in this here because this is the theme music.
Oh.
Yes. This is a great conversation. Thank you so much for joining me. I hope you can do this again with me soon. I love this.
To.
Yeah.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, of course. My pleasure. Stick around because we do a backstage, so that means we'll be off the air and we'll chat a little bit more. For folks who are tuned in 2 weeks we will have Catherine Haley Epstein. She is the author of. The name escapes me. Hopefully she doesn't see this. Nosedive. Thank you, Nosedive. I was gonna like my brain was telling me like, is it Nosedive? I don't know if it is.
That's how we connected.
Oh, wait a second. That's true.
Yeah.
Because I contributed to her project.
And
yeah,
you should. Too.
You did. Yeah, Nosedive is excellent. In fact, I have the book right over here, I think. And we'll be chatting with her. She's a delight. Here's Nosedive here. That will be in 2 weeks. Stay tuned for that. And next week I'll have a new video. And then the week after that, I'm going to do another Notes and Accord series. As promised, I'm going to be doing Amber for that one. So that should be a good time. And just a reminder to folks, buy me a coffee. Each one is $5. Your support helps grow this channel. And I'm going to go to the link very quickly here. We do still have an offer for buy me a coffee. 6 cups equals a sample pack from yours truly. So I have a lot of samples that I want to unload. 6 cups gives you a sample pack. 12 cups will get you a 4 full bottle grab bag, surprise bottles for me, plus a sample pack, US only, please. And check out the website, buymeacoffee.com. And until next time, be well, take care.
Bye.
Bye-bye.